Joining me now is Dr. Tim Woodward, Dean for Agriculture Education, Research, and Development. I'll let you begin with an explanation of your research, Tim.
Well, our research at CBC is based on Washington State's Renewable Fuel Standard. And that fuel standard calls for the use of 2% ethanol and 2% biodiesel for sale in the state by 2008. And then it ramps up to 5% for biodiesel and then to 10% for ethanol. Well, for ethanol, we're okay because, as most people know, we're producing ethanol from corn grain. In this state, we grow wheat and corn as well, and barley, and we can fill that need for ethanol with those crops. But when it comes to biodiesel, it's a little more difficult because our growers don't have experience in oilseed crops. So our research is really based on biofuels. Two aspects of it. We're looking at cellulosic ethanol, developing feedstocks for those. That would include alfalfa, switchgrass, and a grass that grows 15 foot tall called miscanthus. And then the biodiesel part of it where we're looking at oilseed crops. We've looked at several oilseed crops, and the one that looks to have the best potential is soybean. And today I'd like to talk about double cropping soybean.
So what is double cropping?
Well, a simple definition would be to grow two crops in the same year and reap the benefits of those two crops. An example here, and what's done in the southeastern part of the United States, would be soybean following wheat. And so we set up two experiments to see if we could grow soybeans following wheat, and then harvest both the wheat and soybean. And then we set up another experiment to see if we could follow an early crop, such as a first harvest alfalfa or a first harvest Timothy. And with that, I'd like to go to a slide, and on that slide we have 6 planting dates, our first experiment. And this first experiment was tried to find the early, to double crop soybean with the early crop. And I'm only showing 2 varieties here, an early maturing variety and a mid maturing variety. Now if you look at soybeans, their maturity can be a 0.0 all the way to a 10. The 0.0 would be grown in Canada and the 10 would be grown in the tropics. Around our area, it seems to be, by previous research that we've done, that the 0.8s to the 2s are the best adaptive maturity groups. So here we're showing a 0.0 and a 1.5, and the seeding dates of May 23rd through June 27th, 6 different planting dates. And on May 23rd, if you look at the chart, you can see that we yielded 75.2 bushels for the 0.0 maturity, and the 1.5 had 84.9 bushels. In the Midwest, where soybeans are grown a lot, they only have about 40 to 50 bushels. So even if you look at the June 13th planting date, that's in bold, you'd get 54.5 bushels on the 0.0 and 64.2, which is still a pretty good yield. So what that says is that we could take the first harvest alfalfa, which is quite valuable, harvest that, and then take it out and put soybean in and get a full season crop. On the second slide, what we're showing is all 4 of the varieties that we used, from a 0.0 to a 1.7, and you can see the 2 intermediate maturity groups, the 0.8 and 1.5, yielded the best. And this is the average of all the dates, the average yields of these varieties over all dates. And then the third slide is all the planting dates and yields across those planting dates. So on May 23rd, we got 77.3 bushels. Now keep in mind, we harvested these, all of them, on October 29th. So it ranged from 77.3 bushels on May 23rd to 35.7 bushels on June 29th. And what that really signifies, for every day that you do not harvest or do not plant, you're giving up 1.2 bushels per acre. And then, not to forget that we were trying to follow wheat, the last slide is showing the dates from July 2nd to August 6th. And you can see quite clearly the last 3 planting dates had almost no yields. So it's still questionable whether we would want to follow wheat, and we need more research because this data shows that soybeans may not yield enough for that.
So what can you conclude from all of this?
Well, we can conclude that any of those growers, 2 things for sure. Any of those growers that are taking their old crop of alfalfa off and getting that first cut, they could plant soybeans successfully and get a good full season yield. And the second conclusion is we need more research before we try to follow wheat.
Thank you for being on the show today, Tim. When we return, I'll be talking with CBC student Tiffany Kock.
I graduated valedictorian of my high school and I chose CBC. Columbia Basin College is helping me reach my goal of earning a double major in computer science and engineering. With CBC's great instructors, excellent lab equipment, and the latest in state-of-the-art facilities, CBC has given me a competitive edge. I will be transferring to a university in the fall. Although I will really miss CBC, I know that I'm prepared for the next step. CBC was definitely the right choice for me.